Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to Extreme Reloading. I am just about ready to head out to the range. I got the truck all packed. And what am I going to be shooting today? Well, I'm going to be shooting another hand load or another reload, this time using the 167 grain Lapua Scenar bullet. This is one of the two bullets that I've been working up for my Accuracy International AXSA rifle in .308 Winchester. In a previous video, we shot the Sierra 168 grain tipped Match King. This time, the 167 Lapua bullet. And I'm using 4 different powders. That is Varget, RL15, Staball Match, and N150. 4 5-shot groups. Got it? Well, let's go ahead and head out to the range and start shooting. Group number 1. Using Varget powder, this is 167 grain, Lapua Scenar bullets, target in the upper left. That is 5. All right, RL15 powder, bullseye in the upper right. Oh, what the heck? Well, almost looks like 2 separate groups. 3 on the left, 2 on the right. That's not what we want, really. Staball Match, lower left bullseye. N150, lower right. That's nice too. we just completed some pretty important steps today. Namely, we now have 2 5-shot groups with both the Sierra tipped Match King bullet that we talked about in our previous video, and now the Lapua bullets have been shot also. And both of these have been done with 4 different powders. That's a lot of groups and a lot of data. Those 4 powders, by the way, is Varget RL15, Winchester's Staball Match, and N150. Now, with all of that, I think we can start making some decisions about how to proceed with my further load development in this .308 Winchester. But first, let's take a look at some of the results from today's outing at the range. Now let's start with velocity. What we're seeing here, now remember, group number 1 was what we shot quite a while ago. We discussed that in our reloading journal episode, episode number 2. Today's group is shown in the column labeled group number 2. The muzzle velocities were actually very similar with the Varget and N150, RL15 being the slowest, and Staball Match breaking that 2,700 foot per second or feet per second barrier. I like that because in the .308 Winchester, that gives us an advantage for a little bit longer range shooting. On average, we see pretty darn consistent results for most of those powders except the RL15. Looking at consistency of these powders using standard deviation of those muzzle velocities, we see that Varget and RL15 performed very similarly. I don't like to see double digits in my standard deviation of muzzle velocity. Sometimes you just can't help it, but look at what Staball Match and N150 are doing both in today's group, the previous group, and the overall average. How did these Lapua 167 grain Scenar bullets perform on paper, on target? Well, let's take a look at that next. First, here we have the 4 targets we shot today in order. Varget, not too good. In fact, it's not even sub-MOA. Now, for some folks, that's pretty darn good. In fact, when I was shooting my Ruger precision rifle, I would say I'm really happy with that. But not with this Accuracy International rifle. I'm not happy with that. RL15 did just a little bit better than Varget in extreme spread and MOA calculations, but this group is actually more worrisome than what I got with the Varget load. It almost looks, and I think I commented on this while we're out at the range, it almost looks like 2 absolutely separate groups. 3-shot group on the left, 2-shot tiny little group, nice little group, 2-shot group on the right. Now, Staball Match, now that's more like it. Down into that range I really want to be in, 0.61 MOA, 5-shot group, little bit of horizontal stringing going on there. And then, when we look at our last group that I shot with the Vitavuri N150, it is still better than all the rest and just a little bit better than the Staball Match, giving us a 0.58 MOA 5-shot group. Now, statistically, one could argue that 0.61 and 0.58 are so similar that we really shouldn't make too much of a big deal about them being different, or that the N150 was so much better. So I'll kind of bear that in mind as we interpret all of these results. Now let's take a look at Group 1 and Group 2 in both extreme spread and in mean radius. I'll note that the Varget Group number 1 did a fantastic job, 0.38 MOA group. That's really, really good. But the second group that we shot today, not so good, 0.72 being the average. Across the board, the RL-15 has not done that well for us with the Lapua bullets, just hanging in there around a 1 MOA group. Staball Match didn't do that well in group number 1, but it did a real nice job today. N150, kind of the same thing. Overall, N150 comes in with the best average extreme spread. Now, looking at mean radius, this is another good way of understanding our groups. Once again, the RL-15 is lagging behind everything else. And the others, pretty darn similar. Varget, Staball Match, N150, giving us pretty respectable mean radius measurements. That's in inches, by the way, for each of those 5-shot groups, and the average of those 2 5-shot groups. Now, at this point, I am not able to consistently achieve that 0.5 to 0.6, or let's just say better than 0.6 MOA 5-shot groups with this rifle, either of these 2 bullets, or any of these powder and bullet combinations. And the powder that's bringing up the tails on all of these groups is RL-15. So I'm going to cut my losses on that one, let's say, mostly because it's so hard to get, and maybe I'll use it for another load some other day. I'm gonna cut loose the RL-15. No more further development with that powder. I am going to continue forward with the other 3 powders, however. And so I'm beginning to wonder if the optimal charge weight approach that I've been using is actually working out for this particular rifle. Now, the groups are pretty good, but I still want even better consistency, even better, smaller groups than what I'm getting. I may not be able to get it, and I kind of also am thinking some of these groups where I've got a nice 4 shots in one spot, then I get that one out there. I'm kind of starting to wonder if sometimes that is me. It doesn't seem like it, of course, because when I'm squeezing that trigger, I have gotten so accustomed to kind of taking a mental snapshot of where that reticle was as that shot broke, or as that trigger broke and that shot fired. But of course, I can make mistakes, I suppose, that way. And so I throw that out just as a little grain of salt that we can think about as we are interpreting these groups. Now, here is the next approach that I'm going to take. Using these 3 powders, and particularly I'm going to move forward with the Lapua bullet, simply because it seems to be, so far, outperforming the Sierra. And I'm going to load 1 5-shot group, again with that same OCW, optimal charge weight, powder charge. Then I'm going to, in some cases, drop the powder charge 3 to maybe 4/10 of a grain below the OCW. It matters where that OCW sits in the overall load workup that I originally done quite a while ago. I'm going to end up with 3 separate powder charge settings for these Lapua bullets and each of those powders. And then I'm going to head back out to the range. We're going to have a session with the N150, another session with the Staball Match, and a 3rd session with the Varget powder. And of course, maybe the OCW will prove itself. Yes, it does the best across the board. Or I might find another powder charge that simply gives me even better performance, even tighter groups, lower dispersion when I'm shooting those groups, and always going to be doing these at 100 yards from the prone position. Once we get a couple of loads that I feel pretty confident are really the stars of all of this, then we're going to spread it out a little bit and shoot at 200 yards. The problem, by the way, when you're shooting longer and longer distances, of course, it's more challenging, it's more fun in many ways, but you do introduce more shooter error. I don't care how good of a shooter you are going to introduce more shooter error as the range becomes longer. So I've been holding back on going out to 200 yards and doing the shoot for groups. But that's coming up, and I hope that you will end up tuning in for all of our upcoming videos in this season of extreme reloading. Now, you might have some questions, some observations, some comments. Well, post those in the comments section below. And as always, thank you for watching.